is.
It's fun. That is really cool. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm walking on your Dave and Brian both. I didn't see the next question about. Of course, we have it on our website. Our relationship. Sorry, Dave, you handled that so well. Forgive me.
No problem.
I've done that before.
Worries. It's fine. Rex, what do you got?
What do I got? I like this program. I like the acronym DEEP. The one thing that stood out to me was discussing about how people are on autopilot often. And
I'm sorry. Choking. All right.
That's right. We'll put that on our bloopers. We have a bloopers reel, Brian. That was definitely going on the bloopers.
All right. Well, I'm glad I can contribute.
Yeah, that's right.
All right.
Yeah, I liked how you mentioned people go on autopilot, because that's something I recognized early in my marriage, is like just not even realizing how I'm feeling or why I'm reacting a certain way or any of that. Does the program help people kind of tap into their own feelings and emotions and like cause and effect and stuff?
Yeah, I think that's one of the real benefits of doing a program like this. And it doesn't have to be our program. I mean, it can be, it can be reading our book, or it can be reading somebody else's book, or just, I think kind of just taking a weekend away for your relationship, just doing something that kind of, makes you more mindful about what's going on in your relationship. I think all of those things can be helpful. But yes, the program really does kind of start to break that down. And I think by, kind of helping, we'll use video examples of couples who are fighting, and then kind of interviewing each of them individually to kind of illustrate what we mean by a hidden emotion versus a surface emotion. And then we'll walk couples through, what are the surface emotions? Okay, kind of in those moments, what might be an underlying emotion? And then we even have them go the next step and try to identify kind of, where is that hidden emotion coming from? Where is that vulnerability, and what is that about? Is that coming from a, childhood? Is that coming from a previous relationship, or maybe an earlier incident in this current relationship?
So is that like usually the surface emotion I would imagine is anger? And it's usually
in an unhappy couple, you're going to see a lot of anger or frustration, or the opposite. You're going to see withdrawal and kind of defensiveness, or just walking away entirely, almost the lack of emotion.
And is that usually linked to like fear or confusion or what?
Yeah, it's some of the common kind of hidden emotions can be fear. So fear of like, the partner leaving, so fear of abandonment, or fear of kind of the relationship ending. It can be hurt, a lot of times. So something that the partner did, felt like they don't care about you, they don't love you, something like that. It can be jealousy, so I'm worried about my relationship. If you think about jealousy, it's sort of like an activation emotion. It encourages you to do something, and protect your relationship, protect your partner. But unfortunately, a lot of people, rather than it being a proactive kind of positive thing that we do when we feel jealousy, we react with anger towards the situation.
That was a big thing for me, was just tapping into my feelings and realizing, okay, why am I getting upset or angry? Oh, I'm scared. Or this happened to me that made me be a little bit afraid today. Or this, I like how you mentioned like these different things that can trigger them are like kind of memories from past relationships or growing up. That was such a big thing for my wife and I's relationship, is mostly me figuring out why I'm feeling a certain way, and then just learning how to communicate positively about it. I want to ask, is it generally, I would feel it's men who have a harder time identifying their feelings and learning how to maybe express them? Is that?
Yes, that's on average. That is true. Yes.
Is there anything in the research or anything that you would think that might be linked
in terms of kind of why that happens, why we see that difference? Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of research on kind of just the differences between boys and girls growing up, and how much more kind of socially connected or complex girls are. So, I have both a son and a daughter, and, I could see this in my own kids where, my boy was just kind of happy to play alongside his friends, or, everything was kind of oriented towards the activity that they were doing. Whereas a lot of girls kind of early on, they focus very much on kind of each other's feelings and what the dynamics in the group and all of those things. And so I think there's a lot of socialization that happens from an early age, around, and around kind of social complexity. So, you'll even have kind of men saying, while they're in the process of divorce, kind of ask them, why are you getting divorced? And they will say, I don't know. They can't answer that question. It's sort of like, ask my wife. And there's just really interesting research that women are much better able to identify kind of the serious relationship problems. They're better able to predict, if you were to break up in 5 years or whatever, what would be the cause of that breakup? They're much better able to guess what that's going to be than men are. So, the research talks about it as kind of relationship maps, or, kind of this complexity. But really at the end of the day, women generally tend to be, better at thinking about relationships and how everything's connected, and this idea that what I'm seeing might not be what's kind of going on under the surface.
That's interesting about the thing you said about you can ask a man and he might not know why he's getting divorced. And I've heard an old saying that says, a woman grieves before the divorce, and the man grieves after the divorce.
Yep. And there's interesting research on that. So if you look at because obviously divorce is pretty detrimental to everyone's mental health, but the biggest impact for women tends to be before the divorce, whereas for men it tends to be after the divorce. Because women are often the ones filing for divorce nowadays. So women come to the recognition that this isn't going to work. They grieve for that relationship, then file divorce. And kind of, it's not really until the divorce is filed that it really kind of, men start to deal with the loss of that relationship, whereas women have already kind of processed that.
Yeah. And you said, I have sons and daughters too, and I kind of recognize that, the girls tend to like their relationships and people, and the boys tend to like the things that they can play with and do things with, but not so much interacting. It's a very interesting trait difference, I guess, between men and women and boys and girls.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come up with this program? Were you stuck in Miami traffic one day and just boom, got the idea?
No, it was, I kind of mentioned that originally I was trained as a couples therapist, and, that is still something I'm very passionate about. I still do trainings in our couple therapy approach. I supervise students in couple therapy here at the university. But for me, it was, I was struck as when I was in graduate school, I was in California in graduate school, and spending just all my time, we were doing a study kind of comparing one version of couple therapy versus another version of couple therapy. And, lo and behold, maybe there were some small differences, but they both worked. And, here we were spending all of our time sort of trying to make the widget better. Where, I was doing research at the same time showing that kind of just how many couples were not making it all the way to therapy. We were losing so many couples along the way. And, there's research out there that most couples who are getting divorced don't go to couple therapy. And so I just kind of got more interested early in my career about what else could we do besides kind of more traditional in-person couple therapy to reach all of those people that were missing. So it's really much more of a reach question. How do we reduce those barriers and increase the reach of our programs?
That is so exciting.
Do you know how many to date? our people have gone through our relationship, maybe not the exact number, but
yeah, I mean, it's in the tens of thousands. I don't know the exact number. But yeah, we do a lot of work with our kind of funding for low income couples, but we also have contracts with the U.S. military and things like that. And we're increasingly starting to work more and more with businesses because businesses recognize that sort of like what we started talking out about of that kind of the employees who are at home who are struggling a lot. Are also going to have trouble at work.
Yep.
And
it's expensive across the board, isn't it?
Yep.
Personally and in business, careers. Yeah. That's very cool. But our relationship is the same, whether we're military family or any other specialization. Is that right? Do you have specifics for military families? I'm just curious.
We do. So these programs all follow the general structure of the observe, understand, and respond, because we want to stay pretty close to our empirical base. But for example, if I'm doing the military program versus our same-sex program versus our heterosexual program, I'm going to see different couples depicted in the videos. I'm going to see different problems. So we're going to be talking about deployments and changes of station in our military things. We're going to be talking more about mental health and trauma in our military program. Whereas in our, program for heterosexual couples, we're going to be talking more about job stress and financial strain and other types of things.
Wow. It is tailored, very specialized. That's cool. Thank you. I can't wait to dive in. And I'm sorry I haven't done so by now. But I'm excited.
That's okay.
I love learning something new, and especially when something is so powerful as this.
Yeah, this has been great.
I would imagine that this would be a big thing for businesses or military too, because your relationships really do affect your productivity and just how innovative and things you could be, or just in the game. You're not
absolutely.
Your head is like, this relationship, I can't figure it out.
Yeah. It's all consuming, isn't it? When things aren't working well, it just consumes everything. It consumes every aspect of our life.
Yeah. Well, because it's what we go home to every day.
Yeah.
And it impacts our sleep. It impacts our physical health. It just starts to have so many trickle down effects into so many areas of our life.
And our kids too.
Yeah.
Yeah. We recently talked to Jeanette Erickson about the effects of conflict on children too.
Yeah.
This is awesome. I'm glad that this is out there, and it's something that really taps into people's ease of, there's an app or I can go online and it's flexible. Right. I can make it work. This is really cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
I just want to tell our listeners on Reconcilable Differences that there were a few of those with the same title. So make sure that it's the one that has Brian Doss's name on the front cover.
I saw that someone else has a recent book called Reconcilable Differences. They grabbed it. So
well, we will put a link directly to yours in our show notes. Yeah.
You can leverage that mistake though. They might hey, I saw this other one that looked better though. By Brian.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Just ordered my copy. Thank you so much.
Right. Oh, great. Well, you will have an opportunity then to kind of walk through. So in the book, we also provide some quizzes and things like that to kind of help you develop your own, deep understandings. And if you work with your partner through the book, and get their responses as well, you can kind of, replicate some of the same things we do online.
Very cool.
Incredible.
Very cool.
Awesome. Well, good. Well, thank you so much, Brian, again, for taking time to come on and share. We've just, absolutely enjoyed having you on and learning more about the resources that you offer and doing our part to megaphone them out to our audience. So we're in all 50 states and 89, 90 countries. Yeah. So we're going to get this out there, hopefully even more. So thanks again.
Wonderful.
Thanks for joining us today. Hey, do us a favor and take a second to subscribe to our podcast and the Utah Marriage Commission YouTube channel at Utah Marriage Commission, where you can watch this and every episode of the show. Be sure to smash the like button, leave a comment, and share this episode with a friend. You can also follow and interact with us on Instagram at Stronger Marriage Life and Facebook at Stronger Marriage. So be sure to share with us which topics you loved or which guests we should have on the show next. If you want even more resources to improve your marriage or relationship connection, visit strongermarriage.org, where you'll find free workshops, e-courses, in-depth webinars, relationship surveys, and more. Each episode of Stronger Marriage Connection is hosted and sponsored by the Utah Marriage Commission at Utah State University. And finally, a big thanks to our producer, Rex Polanis, and the team at Utah State University, and you, our audience. You make this show possible. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the Utah Marriage Commission.